All right, welcome to another episode of The Catholic Couple, having fun with faith, family, and friends. I'm your co-host, Bobby Fredrickson, and with me, as always, my beautiful wife,
Katie Fredrickson.
I'm the convert Catholic, and she's
the cradle Catholic.
And here we are on a special episode. We have another guest coming to you this week. We have Tony Schreiner from Mass of the Ages. He's going to share all the awesome projects that they're working on and have done, and it's just going to be an interesting conversation. So we want you guys to stick around and to hear, because it's one episode that we've been really excited about.
There's just such a huge rise in Catholic media that I'm noticing in quality productions that are coming out now, right? And it's just so cool to see and to hear of your upcoming projects too, Tony. So tell us a little bit about you, about Mass of the Ages, and about how you guys got started.
Yeah, great, guys. Thanks for having me. This is wonderful, and I'm not a convert, Bobby, but I mean, I feel you, because I'm like a revert. So it's like I was baptized. I was baptized when I was 6 months old, and then things got crazy, and I didn't come in until I was 19.
Wow.
But thanks be to God that we're here. We're all here now, right? We're here now doing this. So yeah, and Katie, you mentioned the quality. Catholic media is way different now than it was 5 years ago. So that's really what drew me to Mass of the Ages. First as a fan, and then a donor, and then was on the board of directors, and then Cameron asked me to be the CEO. So we'll kind of start there. This goes back to 2019, and Cameron wanting to start a single film that helps people grow in their faith. His response to that Pew study of, hey, only such a fraction of Catholics believe in the real presence and the Eucharist, and why is that? So he sets out to do this one film, goes through Kickstarter, gets the money, and then that one film turns into 3. We've got the trilogy, right? We become a nonprofit. I was on the board of directors for a while, and then, as I mentioned, Cameron asked me to be the CEO, and I started back in early June of 2024. So it's been absolutely crazy, insane in a good way, because there's so many things that are going on. And one of the things that through prayer I've brought to the team is, in talking to the team, like, hey guys, I really feel like God is calling us to cast the net wide. I felt like he was saying that to me in prayer, cast the net wide. Because I'm not a media guy. I started my own software company with the help of my wife, and we grew it. And then I exited from that company and took a little bit of time off. So it was really kind of a shock when Cameron asked me to be the CEO, but it's like, yeah, I definitely want to do this. I want to help on the business side of things. You guys go and be artists because you're amazing. I'll help out with the business stuff. So that's kind of where we're at in the how things have transpired. But seeing the beautiful content that our team creates, it's what drew me to this role. It's like, yes, I want to be a part of this organization, and they keep getting better. I say they because I'm not an artist. I mean, I feel like I'm a part of the team, of course, but it's like I can't do the artist stuff, right? I'm not an editor. I'm not a director, but now I'm learning a lot. So one of the big things is casting the net wide, which means we've been obviously really focused on the supply side. Our fans know us from the trilogy, focusing on the old rite, and latinmass.com being our website that we've had. And we've launched Latin Mass University, which is us training priests to celebrate a low mass, right? To celebrate right in a low mass. And it's been phenomenal. So we've got literally thousands of people in Latin Mass University. So we have hundreds of priests and seminarians who have signed up and taken our course to celebrate the old rite in a low mass. So we're working on that supply side, but then the other side is the demand side, right? Well, it's like, well, we seem to be preaching to the choir. At best, I think traditional Catholics, or those who go to the old rite, make up about 2% of all Catholics. Well, what about the other 98%? We can't ignore them. So that's been the thing that we're working on now, is casting the net wide and doing content Sure, we're going to keep doing content that is very specific to the old rite, but we want to talk about tradition as a whole, not just the liturgy. Yes, that's important, but what about tradition and the saints and feast days? What about the sacred music? All these things that tradition, the history of it, understanding it. And so that's the focus for our team right now, is to get content out there that every single Catholic, it will increase their flame of faith, regardless of what mass they go to. In fact, we hope that there are Catholics out there that, hey, maybe they've just been baptized, right? So that fire is there. It's a tiny little flicker, but hey, they haven't gone to mass for whatever reason. Like me, maybe it's because their parents were divorced. Maybe it's because they're upset about certain scandals and things that have happened. But they see our media, they see how beautiful and what a high quality it is, and it draws them to want to go back to confession if they haven't gone in decades, which there are plenty of people out there like that, or actually just go to mass. So that's really the focus that we have right now, is to reach not just millions. We have about 12 million views worldwide on all of our media. We want to reach hundreds of millions of Catholics.
Yeah,
and that's
I think you're on to Word on Fire does a great job of leading with beauty, and I think that's where you guys have been successful. Is like people, there's something to it, and I heard in one of the videos, it was talking about the beauty draws people, but we've seen what happened in the 60s and 70s. They really gutted a lot of the churches to try to be more of, to be more inclusive to our Protestant brothers and sisters. And we've seen a hollowing out of the church. It's like people, when they walk into a church that's beautiful, there's a reverent mass going on or beautiful sacred music. It sounds so different than what the world is offering.
Yeah.
That it's something totally different. It's transcendent. It's like, it's not for us. This is a house built for God. Yeah. And when people walk in, it's like, well, why would they spend this much time and effort? And like, why is this look so beautiful? Like, and that's what drew me in as a convert. I went to one mass. And it's an old style cathedral, the parish where Katie grew up at St. Andrew the Apostle in Calumet City. It was built cathedral style. It was built in the 30s, but it had beautiful high altar and I mean, just beautiful. And I went to one midnight mass, and that beauty is what drew me in. And then obviously I humbled myself, and then I walked out of there a different person. I said, I had experience with the Holy Spirit. I'm like, I want to come every Sunday. So beauty is just a way to just, I think the way, especially in this day and age, to at least grab the attention of somebody, like, wow, grab their attention, and then God will do the rest of the work.
I do love the way that in the three, Mass of the Ages films, where one of the women that was followed that lost her husband, she talked about how tradition is foundation. So I love that you're going into more than just that mass and unpacking that, which is what those, if those of you that listen to this show or watch our show don't know what Mass of the Ages are, they're very high quality. There's 3 episodes that kind of unpack that what the Mass used to be before Vatican II, what kind of transpired to make these changes, and then the fruits that have been from that, and then that there's a big wave of people that are just rediscovering that beauty in that worship space, but also in the idea of traditional being so foundational. And so now in your next broadening that, well, yeah, let's go back to our roots. Let's go back to our foundation of what's solid that we can build upon, no matter where you are in your walk of faith and in your Catholicism, like you said. That's very cool that's your next chapter, that's your next space. So in those, do you see, how much are you, like, do they go out and find people to interview, find people to, go out? Are people approaching you guys because there's just such a thirst for this? Or, how what's the process in what to cover and how to cover it?
Yeah, so we get a lot of people who reach out to us, which is really cool. A lot of people will reach out to us, and it gives us a better understanding of how the world is digesting what we're doing, right? Mm-hmm. We also we're trying to reach further, right? We're trying to reach further and say, okay, what about, we're not trying to label Catholics, because I don't even know what my number would be, but let's just say Catholics can be from 0 to 10. right? 0 would be if they're baptized and that was it, and you never stepped foot. So maybe you're 0.1, right? Whatever.
Yeah.
So we get what we want to do is to let people know that tradition, number one, it's not a bad word. A lot of times people are like,
That's for sure.
oh, tradition, like, oh, that's so rigid and difficult. And it can be if you let it. But the fact of the matter is, for the last 2,000 years, our church is amazing. There have been so many amazing saints. So many of them are martyrs, and just reading about them, right? It makes us excited. So then think about what we can do with beautiful content, media content. Some of the things that have really shaped where we're going with our team is just looking at the data, looking at the numbers. So let me just share this a little bit with you guys. There's 1.3 billion Catholics, 1.3 billion baptized Catholics in the world today. Okay. 25% go to mass on a weekly basis, 25%. And of that 25%, it looks like 60% believe in the real presence. So we literally have 1 billion Catholics that need to be reached. 1 billion Catholics need to be reached, and their flame of faith needs to be thrown gas on. And that's what we want to do with our content, right? We want to throw gas on it. And you're exactly right. Beauty is a great place to start. It's one of God's 4 properties, right? Truth, beauty, unity, and goodness. So we try to bring all of those 4 properties into everything that we do, but leading with beauty is key because people can see that and they feel it. With the trilogy, all 3 of our films, we just kept getting better and better.
And it's the least pushback you're going to get too, because there's no words.
That's right. How do you argue with beauty?
You can't. That's the sweet spot.
How do you argue with what the saints have done in the past and what these people do in this area of the world celebrating this festival or this feast, right? You can't argue with that. You just have to look at that and say, wow, let me digest that. Let me think about that. And how does that going to help me grow in union with God? That's our goal, right? Our goal is to help people grow in union with God. And if it's the liturgy that somebody wants to hold on to and say, yes, I get that, I understand the importance of tradition in the liturgy, great, go to the old mass, right? But if it doesn't make sense for certain people, then let's find, well, what traditions of the Catholic faith can you attach to help you grow in union with God and increase your flame of faith? We want to throw all that out there, right? We want to be able to do that. And so we'll talk about our 2 projects that we've announced. If you guys are okay with it, we'll talk about those
absolutely
projects.
Yeah,
Good.
Yeah, I think it's a smart strategy to expand, because like you said, it's only 2% of Catholics are going, and let's just be honest, like there's a newer resurgence where more people, it's almost like when someone tells you that you can't do something, it's like you really want to do it. It's like now the countercultural is to be traditional, that
totally
the virtue is now has all the exhilaration of vice. Chesterton says it's like everyone's got blue hair and tattoos and all that kind of stuff, so like you're not very punk rock anymore. Punk rock is being traditional, going to church, having a family, homesteading, like all these kinds of things. That is like so countercultural now, which is crazy. But I think there are a lot of things that we can learn and apply. Like, we don't go to traditional Latin Mass. I've been to them. We've been to St. John Cantius in Chicago. We're in Northwest Indiana. But there can be a reverence and a beauty to a Novus Ordo as well. And we can bring that reverence ourselves. Like, when we understand what is actually going on, regardless of where you're at, is like, it's not about what you get out of it. It's about God. You're there for him, and what you are bringing, you're bringing yourself, you're bringing your sacrifices, you're bringing your offering, you're bringing, everything with you. I think it's a lot more important to try to help engage that with, like you said, these other billion Catholics. Like, what are they missing? What are they not seeing that I'm seeing? How come they don't see it? What's going on? Is it catechesis? Is it this? It's like, it's a bunch of different things. But I think by, revealing, and like a lot of people haven't been shown these beautiful liturgies or these beautiful stories of these saints or all these miracles or those kinds of things.
I love Shia LaBeouf when he talked with Bishop Barron, when he was talking about how when he went to a traditional mass, that he just felt like he wasn't trying to be sold something, but he was being let in on a secret, right? That it's not about us being entertained. It's not about us at the center, which for so long, I think putting, dripping those tabernacles out, putting them off to the side, making that it all about the table and not, like the sacrifice and who we're there for. And I think that when you go and you put it in the correct place where it's supposed to be, and that God is at the center and it's not people centered, that we are coming together to worship God, but he is the center. He should be our focal point, or that he should be what we set our minds on when we're there. That is what changes everything. It's not about what I get out of it. It's not about how good the priest's homily is, how good this is. Now those things are going to help you be better, right? You can get a good message out of it. Music can move you. That's obviously how you can, especially reach like the unchurched, right? Like that's probably what you experience something at that midnight mass, by just mere being there, I think, but not everybody has that kind of experience. But that whole idea of the people-centeredness that's what needs to shift, and into the God-centeredness and why we're here.
So with your new series, this Discovering Tradition is the first one. What are some of the things that you're going to guide and lead people to discover? I love the G.K. Chesterton quote where he says that tradition means giving votes to the most obscure of all classes, our ancestors. It is the democracy of the dead. Tradition refuses to submit to the arrogant oligarchy of merely of those who happen to be walking around. And that's so much, is like we take so many things for granted, standing on the shoulders of giants, from the roads that we're driving on to the government, that, the Constitution, that so many people, we're history teachers, and so many people just take things for granted. Like those people back then, they didn't know how to code, and they didn't know the internet. Therefore, they don't know anything. And we're better, and we're modern people. But there's so much that they have to offer to us, especially, even people who are not, like from Socrates, Aristotle, to where we start getting the St. Thomas Aquinas and Augustines and these people. Like we can learn so much. So what are some of the things that you're trying to help us discover?
What's being discovered?
Yes.
That's a great question. So it's called Discover Tradition. And again, the goal would be that we want to give a family, especially, but obviously not everybody has a family, but we had the family in mind. We want to transport them to wherever we're at in the world, because we're going all over the world, so that they can feel like, hey, I'm there. I'm seeing this feast and festival. I'm learning about this saint or that saint. And I feel like I'm a part of what's happening in that culture or what's happening in that part of the world. Right. And to be specific. So I'm not quite sure what order we're going to do it, but we went to Naples, Italy, and we filmed the feast of San Gennaro, or Saint Gennaro, Saint Januarius, and the liquefaction of the blood. It's something that a lot of people know about. Like, yeah, I've heard about this vial of blood, and a lot of times it liquefies, doesn't liquefy every single time. But what does that mean to me? Like, it's 2025, and I've got kids to feed, and I've got bills to pay. What does that mean to me? And I think, guys, that's really what we want to bring to people, is to say, look, just because you weren't there in the year 305 when San Gennaro was martyred, let what he did apply into our lives. So what did he do? And that's what we're going to do, is we're going to tell his story. This is what he was, a bishop, and he actually was minding his own business, but he had heard of Christians that were being martyred, and he went to go shepherd his flock. I would love for bishops to hear this. I'm not trying, and I'm not going down that road. I'm not going to go down the road of picking on bishops. But I would love, but that's what he was doing. And it was the year 305, and he heard of his faithful that were going to be martyred under Diocletian, and he went to go shepherd them and to comfort them. And they were like, "Whoa, we've heard about you. You're a high up." And then they grabbed him and some of his companions and martyred him. So, and he was completely willing to die for the faith, right? That was not even an issue. And the early martyrs teach us so much. That's part of what we want to try to do, Bobby and Katie, is that we want to remind the world, this is our faith. We have to be willing to die for Jesus Christ, right? Be willing to die for him in the Eucharist, in the sacrifice of the Mass. We'd be willing to die for this, to die for Holy Mother Church. And yes, guess what? People back then, they had to pay bills. They had to put food on the table. They had to work. And they also had, if they were living in that area, this ruthless emperor that was martyring Christians right and left, right? So we want to show the beauty. We want to show the kind of the awe of, wow, I've never been to Naples, Italy, or I've never been to wherever we're going to be filming. It grabs their attention, but we're also reminding them this is a part of your history, your ancestry, right? Every single baptized Catholic, San Gennaro and his companions are literally in our Catholic DNA. And I think people can get excited about that and say, you know what, I'm going to turn to prayer because I don't know what to do. I don't know how to pay the bills. I don't know how to handle the fact that, we can't pay rent and we don't know what to do, but Lord, I'm going to give this to you. And other people have other problems, right? But we want to remind everyone that it's all about our unity with God, no matter what's happening in this world. And through our faith, right, through these traditions, people can attach, hey, I can be like San Gennaro. I can be a martyr, even though God's not obviously calling me to do that right now. I'm going to be strong in the faith. So does that make sense, guys? That's what we really want to bring to everybody.
I think we could take it another step too, is that as Catholics, we get a lot of misunderstanding about what we believe about the saints, but we believe the church is, the triumphant, we have the militant and the suffering. So that we believe when people die, they're not gone. They are in heaven, that they are just as close
that they made it,
Yes.
But they're also still part of the church, that they're rooting us on, that we can ask for their intercession. But that doesn't, just because these people are dead and gone, doesn't mean that we still don't have a connection in a real way to these people.
Absolutely.
And I think we've lost a lot of that.
I think a lot of it is lost in the just like the holy cards like this, like that's just somebody that they just prayed all day. They didn't have bills to pay in like a normal life, right? Or the idea of just he was born in the year 307. The things that we had to like what you would learn about saints and like more boring,
or just
boring.
Right.
We human beings as in we, the collective we make this stuff so boring, but it's so not like, so the more, it's more about the virtues and the qualities of that individual that we should be looking at and identifying with and making relevant. Like, wow, that's why there's a patron saint for everything, right? Because they all struggled with something that's human. We all have that human struggle. So to find that one that has a human struggle like I did, and how did they overcome it and how did they make it? Because I know they made it. So I want to train like them, right? Like I want to train to be the Christian that they ended up being, So it's just the more relevant, the more real, the more you can take something that seems so distant or put so far up on a shelf or a pedestal, right, that we've just become like yawn central to it. Like, what's it going to do with me?
Katie, 100%. That's really, really important, is that this stuff isn't boring. This stuff is actually, it's mind blowing. Like, I had no idea that this stuff happened and that they still do these things in the world today, celebrating the rich traditions of the faith, right? I mean, who in the world would think of taking a vial of blood and trying to see if it's going to liquefy? I mean, but the cool thing is about this episode, we tell that story as to why did they do it? And why did they start doing it? They started doing it because Naples as a city had these massive issues. They had a famine, they had their water contaminated, they had an outside aggressive army coming in to destroy, and they were just like, we don't know what to do, so we're going to ask. They literally wrote up a contract with Saint Gennaro. They all signed it, the leaders of the city. And we filmed the contract itself. It exists, and this happened in the 16th century.
Wow.
And they made this contract. Now, San Gennaro didn't sign it, of course, because he died in 305. But they made this contract and said, San Gennaro, if you deliver us, obviously intercede to God and deliver us from these things, we will celebrate you every year forever. And guess what? They were delivered of all those things. The water was miraculously made clean. The famine stopped. The people who were going to come in and invade didn't invade. And so they've been true to what they said. And every year they take that blood out and they see if it liquefies. And it's a thing that they do. And the people in Naples lose their minds. I mean, it's a big deal. And we were a part of it. And it was just, I mean, and there's nothing boring about that.
No.
Talking about a martyr's blood. Like, this is fantastic. Let's tell the world about these things. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I think too, we were talking a little bit about earlier, like tradition has become a bad word, but the word tradition itself just means handed on down. In 305, the Bible wasn't even there yet. So Jesus didn't leave us the Bible. He left us the church, and the church has preserved so many of these stories and these traditions. Doesn't mean that, you know, that it's necessary for salvation, but these are stories and people and lives that have literally helped shape the faith. And I think what you're hinting at is that we need people who are great storytellers to get the story out. Because look at a story like Braveheart. William Wallace was like a side character. I heard an interview with the guy who actually wrote it, Randall Wallace, and he was just walking and saw the statue. He was like, oh, William Wallace. He's like, oh, that's my name. And then the guy said, well, who is he? He goes, well, the story goes like, you know, this thing, like no one actually knew. And he turned this into like this great story that everyone can tell you all about William Wallace, but who knows? They don't even know if that's true. But we have documented stories of like an actual contract of these actual people, of their actual stories. And the church does a great job of keeping records, but we need to take people who have the gifts and the talents of storytelling and media and telling stories to tell it in a way that's not like a boring saint card or a boring biography. You know, we've had great throughout history, people like Mark Twain write about the saints, or we have these people who are great. And I just see Martin Scorsese just started to do a series on the saints where we're starting to have an increase of these people who are great storytellers to tell this of the greatest story of these people who fell in love with Jesus, who died for him, who are willing to give their lives for that, but to do it in a way that attracts other people. And it's going to be through stories.
So I'm sorry. So Discover Tradition is going to various places all around the world to discover their specific traditions around. Like, is that all it is, or is there more things of like, is it just the cultural traditions around, you know, the Catholic faith that you're covering in that season, or are you unpacking other? You know, there's so many traditions. Like, it's like where do you start? Where do you stop? Yeah.
It's evolving, and we've realized that it's going to be, we're already talking about season 2 and what that looks like and how it could be different and how we can kind of elevate what we've already been doing, right? And I think that's the wonderful thing about a great team, and our team is amazing, is we see like, okay, here's what we're doing, right? We're doing this thing, but how do we take it to the next level? How do we make it better? How do we make it, if we need it to be more beautiful, more dynamic, whatever the case may be? So right now the focus is feast and festivals, and sometimes
like that,
just crazy things like, wow, I'd heard about the liquefaction of the blood, but I really didn't know. We went to Malta, which is an amazing Catholic country. It's this island country, and the history, just the rich history of the church, and the fact that St. Paul was there for 3 months shipwrecked, and we just cover all of this. And so we're bringing as much as we can to the viewer so that they can sit there with their kids, if they have kids, and if they don't, that's fine, but they can say, okay, this is in our Catholic DNA, and that was awesome, and I'm energized to be a better Catholic. And what does that mean for me? Well, maybe that means I need to, instead of going every 6 months to confession, maybe I should go once a month, or maybe I should read more, or at the very least,
read the Bible or anything.
Yeah,
and
anything.
It's interesting about Malta too. Like I said, the celebrities now, Jesus is starting to. I could feel a shift. I don't know about you, but from, you know, shows like The Chosen or Mass of the Ages or all these different things. I just saw a video. Mel Gibson's doing a video about the siege of Malta. It's like more and more people are attaching. You know, he's working on the sequel to the Passion, about the resurrection. It's like, it's now that there's such a hunger not only for beauty but for truth, and people have been sold a live goods everywhere about what's true and what's not true, and people are really looking. And and it seems that we could do both. We can lead with beauty and then lead them deeper into the truth, and hopefully to fall in love more deeper with Jesus, and then with his people, with, you know, to want to love other people, what we're called to do. So other than that, you said the other program that you had about discovering tradition, which sounds awesome with Fest and Feastful, but you have this Godbread, which is which we know as the Holy Eucharist. Tell us a little bit about that series, about what brought that about. What was the idea? Obviously, we talked about that there's a crisis of people who don't believe in the true presence. Is that what was the main thing? Like, we need to tell those beautiful Eucharistic miracles and stories of the saints and how the Eucharist impacted them.
Yeah, so Discover Tradition is going to be episodal travel, like Catholic travel show episodal, right? We're going to go to these places and do these things, and we'll do a season of 5 episodes, and then we'll do another season of episodes, right? And I think we could do this probably for the next 90 years. I mean, there's so much out there, right?
There's so many traditions.
Godbread is an anthology. So it's 8 short stories or 8 short films, and we're crunching them all together, cutting them in half, and we're going to take 4 short films together at a time to theaters. So this is going to be a film that we're taking to theaters. Our hope and prayer is that we're going to take it to theaters Corpus Christi weekend 2026. So we'll be filming in 2025, taking this to the theaters. We hope to be in at least 500 theaters nationwide. But what it is, guys, is it's short films about Eucharistic saints. Okay. So the importance, so for those of us who get it by the grace of God, we understand, like, look, Jesus in the Eucharist, I'm all about that, right? I want to stop sinning. I want to turn towards God because I want to receive my Lord in the Eucharist. But there's stories of these saints and what they did in their lives are absolutely amazing. And that will help us to grow in union with God, to have a deeper reverence for the Eucharist, and to want it more, to want Jesus Christ in his humanity in the Eucharist more. So that's what these short films are going to be. This is something that Cameron O'Hearn is our chief creative officer, and he's so talented. He's always thinking about what's the next thing, and he's been working on this for quite a while. So that's why I think we're all so excited, because it's one of those things he's put a lot of time and effort in. He's getting a lot of help, and now we're going to start filming in 2025. So that's what is happening here. 4 short films on Eucharistic saints. It's going to go out summer of 2026. We'll film the second half in 2026, and then that'll go out in 2027. So there'll be an anthology, and then we'll have it available, obviously, after theaters, that it'll be in some type of an on-demand way to view it, eventually probably even YouTube for free. So really exciting about telling the stories, for example, of St. Margaret Mary Alacoque, and obviously the Sacred Heart of Jesus, St. Kateri Takakwitha, and what was it like for her to be on a reservation to get baptized? But what people don't know is that she had horrible eyesight, and she left her reservation and walked 200 miles to the nearest church because she wanted to receive her first Holy Eucharist, right? So yes, was she an amazing saint? Absolutely. But let's tell her story, the story of adventure, and people are going to be transformed because they're going to be taken there and walking with that saint and seeing what they did. So we're so pumped up about Godbread, and especially by going to theaters, right? I mean, we need to be taking these things to the world, because the world is out there and it's crazy, right? Yeah. It's crazy. But Jesus is still here. He's still with us, and we've got to take him to the theaters so that people can watch something like this. Yep.
That's awesome.
So Godbread is more like the other 2 are more like documentaries, right? Like you're just finding the people where they're at. But the Godbread, that you need actors and actresses.
Oh, it's narrative. Yeah. Actresses on a set.
A whole other, right? Awesome. So how do you find good talent for Catholic? No, right? Like, because like in a lot of these, again, like I said, Catholic media is like really good now, like it's not bad acting. Quality, like you go back and you look at things that I had when, they rolled the TV with the VCR in when I grew up. This is not like, it was like not very good acting, low budget, right? Like how are you able to find good talent do you look in the same places that Hollywood does, or is it a different, are you attracting people?
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, we're always praying. I mean, the first thing is we're just praying like, Lord, you know what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
Please give us the right individuals so that we can make this a reality. So we're in that stage right now where we're wrapping up some scripts, and we're trying to put together schedules and budgets, and we have a general idea of like, okay, it's going to cost $1 million to do each installment of Godbread. It'll be $1 million to do 4 short films. To do it right, could we do it for 100,000? Yeah, we could, but that would be the kind of quality that you'd put a VCR tape in. You'd roll out it's like, okay, it was Catholic, it's fine, but we're going to do this on a level that has never been done, and we're going to keep raising the bar. So we're going to find the best that we can afford, and we're going to plug them into our scripts and make it phenomenal. And that's what I think is so great about our team, is that they're always looking, always searching. But you're right, Katie, this is, the trilogy was a documentary. And Discover Tradition is an episodal Catholic travel show. Well, this is different. This is actors, actresses, a set, and it's going to be phenomenal. People are going to, I think, really be transformed, not just when they're there at the theater, but it's going to really touch them, because we keep hitting on this. This is really important. Those 4 properties, right? Truth, beauty, unity, and goodness. We package all that up. Sometimes most of the time you lead with beauty, but the truth follows right there, and people are like, okay, shaking their heads up and down. I see what this saint did. That was heroic. That was amazing. They were born with original sin. They battled however they battled with whatever they did. I can do it too. So that's really the hope for us to put their stories.
The other thing that a lot of people are starting to realize what the Catholic Church needs to do is to sell the adventure of living a life following Jesus. Right. That it's not just living in a monastery and just praying all day, that there are different paths for every different person, from somebody living on a reservation to somebody like Blessed Carlo Acutis, soon to be saint, who was living in the digital world, to somebody like Saint Moses the Strong, who was a fighter and killing people, to you name it. And that's the adventure that we need to sell. And it's not, like, hey, just pray, pay, and obey, and shut up, and you can't do this. You know what I'm saying? Like, as an outsider, I always see, it's like, it always seemed to me is like what they were always selling is all these things that you can't do, but it was never showing the things that you were freedom. That the freedom you were to do is to love, and to what a relationship with Jesus can go in this adventure. So it sounds like this is what this is going to be. You're going to show once again in this great storytelling arc and this narrative of showing some of these stories. I know some of these things, but there's a lot that we can learn, and to do it beautifully, and to show how it like costs them, but in the end it's like that hero's journey, like to show that great hero's journey.
I mean, you talked about I always butcher her name,
it's just Saint Kateri. Saint Kateri. Yeah, that's okay. I butcher it too.
I always butcher her poor name. Yeah, she's a cool saint. You just, how we casually say, and she walked 200 miles to get her first Eucharist. It's like, what? Can we all just like take a step back there and think about someone walking 200 miles somewhere? So the ability to showcase what that actually looks like is a completely different than seeing
or juxtaposing of like people who are complaining that, hey, I gotta go to mass. Like this person, we get in our air conditioning cars and drive, and it's not a big deal, versus somebody who had to literally trek and to do those things.
To show that specific moment of her life, and to be able to be like, whoa, and conceptualize it in that way, then that it's so different than casually just saying that, that
and idea. I think the timing is great too. We were both fortunate enough to go to the National Eucharistic Congress, because we're here in Northwest Indiana. It was in Indianapolis, so it was just unbelievable. Now, so it was such a big hit that they're going to keep doing it like every 5 years. I saw they've already announced that they got another one, I think, for 2029. And so it's perfect timing to get a better topic to bring to the forefront, and to see, like we did at that Lucas Oil Stadium with 60,000 people adoring Jesus in the Eucharist. It's like people are thirsting and hungering for it. And what a better way to go the same way that St. Paul would have tried to reach people. If he would have had the internet or different shows, he would have been doing this all the same ways, but he used the Roman roads. That's what he had. And, Fulton Sheen started really using the TV, and like we're using where all the people are at, whether that's TikTok or Instagram or Facebook or YouTube, whatever it is, but using those media to bring Jesus there. That's what we're called, to open up the doors wide of the church, is not to let the world into the church the way that they want it, but for us to open up the windows to let Jesus out and on his terms. Right. And I think that's bringing a full circle back to the tradition, is that so much we want to go out to the world and forget that we're not trying to bring all the ways of the world back into where Jesus is at. He accepts everybody who they are, but on his terms. And his terms aren't our terms. The things that he wants isn't something that my sinful self wants. And we have to remember that yes, all are welcome, and the traditions are there, that these are set up as boundaries, and these dogmas and these doctrines are set in stone for a reason, so that we have these guidelines, we have these fence posts, these boundaries of where to live our faith. But everybody is invited in. All these different saints, all these different people have all these different gifts, but on Jesus's terms. And I think that's what you guys are doing a good job of, showing the tradition, the emphasis of the Eucharist. You guys are doing something for everybody, and to show that tradition isn't a bad word, that it's a beautiful word once you understand it, and not to be disparaged by our Protestant brothers and sisters who think that tradition is a bad word. That Scripture clearly says that, that in Thessalonians, he talks about tradition is the way that to hand things on down to people, that there was so much that Jesus did and said that it would take all the books of the world to contain it. And the Catholic Church preserved a lot of this information. And it's just a beautiful thing of your guys' ministry and what you guys are doing, trying to draw the people to the beauty of the liturgy, the beauty of our tradition, and then the beauty of the Eucharist and these Eucharistic saints. That's a beautiful mission. So other than that, we're getting close to the end here. What are some ways that people can help you in your mission? Because I know you're on YouTube, you got Mass of the Ages, and you have a website. So lay out all the ways that people, if they feel called to want to help and support this mission, how to get in touch with you guys, or how to donate, or how to help.
Yeah, great. I appreciate that, guys. So tradition.tv. So that's a new website that we've created, tradition.tv. We created this website to put all of our projects there. So you can go to tradition.tv. You can see the trailers that we've done for Discover Tradition. And you can see a trailer for Godbread, so that you can get an understanding of, oh, I see what this is. Okay, this is exciting. I'm looking forward to this. Obviously, as a registered 501c3, we only can do this through donations. We're working on revenue streams right now. We're still a really young nonprofit, so we're working on revenue streams. Our hope, guys, is that we can take a season of Discover Tradition and actually sell it to EWTN, Netflix, whoever might want to, give us money for it. That would help fund more projects, right? But right now, donations is the way that we're funding everything. So you can click that donate button, which is on tradition.tv, and you can make a one-time or a monthly recurring donation. And it's also a place that will be updating information, like, hey, where are we at in this project? Once we start releasing things, then people can know where to go and how to view these. So tradition.tv gives everybody that information. And then if you're interested in very specific things on the traditional Latin Mass, latinmass.com is our website, which again has information on Latin Mass University and all of our projects as well on latinmass.com. And of course, the trilogy is still out there. We still, we have over 5 million views on the trilogy, and it just, people keep watching it. So people will keep watching that. Thank you.
Well, thank you for taking the time to share your journey into becoming the CEO of this, and how it all worked out. But it's I'm sure it's a lot of hard work, and you don't get a lot of credit, and just like the same thing that we're doing, but it is worth it. You don't know, whoever's listening could be just one person that you're going to affect. That's how we keep going. Right. So you never know who's listening or how it's going to impact somebody, and how that's going to help get somebody closer to Jesus, ultimately make them a saint. So keep up the
Amen.
good work. We'll share everything also in the description on this YouTube video of tradition.tv, latinmass.com, and we'll link to the Mass of the Ages trilogy as well. But this has been a very informative episode.
Yeah,
We really thank you, Tony.
To see